Hey, what's going on everyone? Greg here, and today we have even more reports and rumors about Apple's long-awaited 16-inch bezel-less MacBook Pro, and also a brand new 13-inch MacBook Pro and MacBook Air, complete with a brand new keyboard redesign. And supposedly these laptops are on the way pretty soon, so let's get into all of the details. A recent supply chain leak by the Economic Daily News reports that Apple will be releasing a new 13-inch MacBook Pro and a new MacBook Air with a release slated for as soon as October. The big update coming to this new 13-inch MacBook Pro and MacBook Air would be a new keyboard that isn't using the butterfly dome switches that were found on MacBook keyboards coming from the MacBook in 2015 to the 2016 MacBook Pro and then the 2018 MacBook Air. These new laptop keyboards will supposedly be going with a more traditional keyboard design that incorporates scissor switches. So think of something more like the old 2015 MacBook Pro, but it'll probably be more similar to the latest generation of the Magic Keyboard, where it still has a lower travel of keys and it actually feels a little bit more stable, but it still does have more travel than the butterfly keyboard and does feel different from that. Supposedly, Apple isn't happy with just stopping with that older keyboard design though. Apparently they're going to be introducing glass fiber reinforced keys. I almost feel like Apple, don't do anything different from the Magic Keyboard 2. It is a perfectly fine keyboard. I've been using it on my iMac. I've never heard any single person complain about the Magic Keyboard breaking, so I think just stick to that design, take it easy, but it's Apple. Of course, they're going to engineer some sort of solution to try and impress everyone out there. So hopefully with the more traditional scissor switch design and supposedly with this reinforced glass fiber, hopefully these will be really, really reliable keyboards. Maybe they'll never break because of this interesting material. Now, the only other thing we know about these new 13-inch laptops is that supposedly the 13-inch MacBook Pro will be getting an additional option for 32 gigabytes of RAM. Currently it is limited to 16 gigabytes. But other than that, there are no other rumors to go along with these new laptops. So don't expect a new bezel-less design, Face ID, or maybe even new CPUs inside of it. Just sounds like they're introducing a new keyboard, and then they're going to give you the option to bump up the RAM on the 13-inch MacBook Pro from 16 gigabytes to 32 gigabytes. Now, I'm sure a lot of you watching this have just finished watching some of the videos I did on the new 13-inch MacBook Pro and new 13-inch MacBook Air that were just released this month, and you're probably wondering, how reliable is this rumor? We just had these new laptops released. Would Apple actually refresh their laptop lineup in only about 4 months? And usually with a rumor like this, with such a short time frame between updates, I would usually not believe it at all. However, I think there is some precedent for this update. I would look at the 15-inch MacBook Pro when it got new graphic options for the Vega 16 and Vega 20 graphics cards. That was only a 5-month difference from when that laptop was released. And maybe this laptop won't exactly be launching in October, maybe it'll be November, so it'll be closer to 4 to 5 months. So maybe with that in mind, maybe Apple would release this new keyboard inside of the laptop lineup, considering a lot of people don't like the butterfly keyboard. So if they're leaving sales on the table, if people are waiting to buy a MacBook until they put a new keyboard inside of it, I could definitely see Apple making the move to update these as soon as possible. But, and I do have to put a but in here, there is no guarantee that Apple will be refreshing these MacBook Pros and MacBook Air as soon as October or November. It could be slated for a 2020 release, so if you're in the market for a MacBook Pro and a MacBook Air, I don't know what to tell you. If you really hate the butterfly keyboard, I guess wait for the newer models. However, if the MacBook Air and MacBook Pro aren't coming out in the October-November timeframe, you might be waiting a little bit longer. So if you're okay with waiting, I would recommend waiting for the new models to be released. But if you need a laptop now for school, I guess you really don't have an option. Now, the more interesting rumor, or at least for me, is that Apple will be releasing the 16.5-inch bezel-less MacBook Pro with a complete redesign this fall. and it will start at $3,000. The supply chain is reporting that Apple will be getting LCD panels from LG, so no OLED panels for the MacBook Pro this year. These panels will have a resolution of 3072 by 1920, so basically upping the 15-inch resolution so that it hits the correct pixels per inch for a Retina display. This 16.5-inch MacBook Pro would also be getting the new keyboard that we talked about with the 13-inch MacBook Pro and the MacBook Air, so the more traditional scissor switch design. Another tidbit with that new keyboard is that it apparently is still going to keep the touch bar. However, it is also going to have a physical escape key. So one of the rumors with this 16.5-inch MacBook Pro is that they're going to ditch Touch ID and they're going to bring in Face ID. But let's get back to that price point, because I saw a lot of reaction today of people getting upset with the $3,000 price point, and I can understand $3,000 is a lot of money, and I know a lot of people are very interested in the idea of a MacBook Pro with reduced bezels, a nice 16.5-inch display, and especially that new keyboard. A lot of people have been waiting a long time for a machine like this. However, I have to kind of be the bad guy and remind people out there who are probably looking at this machine that this isn't a current replacement for that 15-inch MacBook Pro that's currently out in the lineup. This is more akin of a replacement to the old 17-inch MacBook Pro that Apple used to sell. Back when Apple did sell a 17-inch laptop, the starting price for that 17-inch laptop was $2,799, so it's not a far cry from the $3,000 starting price that we're hearing with these rumors. This Mac is supposedly for the highest end of professionals in the laptop market, so think of something like the iMac and the iMac Pro. The 15-inch MacBook Pro is going to stick around, but then there's going to be another MacBook Pro tier on top of it, which is just kind of confusing because we have so many different MacBook Pro configurations, the 13-inch, the 15-inch, and now we're adding a 16.5-inch on top of it. I almost feel like there should be another name for this MacBook Pro so people aren't confused with it, but Pro means professional. I don't know, what could they call it? The MacBook Pro Pro, the MacBook Ultra, or maybe the MacBook Max. That would actually be an interesting name, MacBook Max. I think I could get used to that. And then you could have a fun tongue twister, MacBook Max runs Mac OS. Okay, anyway, I digress. What other things could we see with this new 16.5-inch MacBook Pro besides having a pretty awesome display and a high starting price of $3,000? We could probably also expect to see some new CPUs inside of it. I don't think Intel has any new CPUs currently announced that would really make its way into this MacBook Pro unless they are going with desktop configuration CPUs, but I really wouldn't put too much stock on that. Maybe there is a new CPU in the works that Apple could incorporate, but again, the new 8-core CPUs that are inside the current 15-inch MacBook Pro are plenty powerful, and I assume that this new 16.5-inch MacBook Pro is also going to have a new redesign, and that new redesign could lead to better thermal management, like when they redesigned the iMac to the iMac Pro. The iMac Pro has much better thermal management than the regular old iMac. So even if it has the same 8-core processors as the current 15-inch lineup, this 16.5-inch MacBook Pro could do a much better job at cooling them, and then those MacBook Pro processors can run at higher frequencies for a prolonged period of time, and that would be enough of a performance boost for professionals looking into these computers. Apple could also decide to do other things to this lineup, so currently you can only max out the MacBook Pro at 32 gigabytes of RAM, so maybe we'll see the addition of options for 64 gigabytes of RAM, or maybe even as high as 128 gigabytes of RAM. I also think we might see a new graphics chip inside of this MacBook Pro. AMD has done some updates recently with the Navi architecture, so it'd be really cool to see a mobile version of that graphics card ready to power some high performance graphics. Overall, I'm just excited to see some new product, and I think that's the most appealing thing about this new 16.5-inch MacBook Pro. We haven't received a MacBook Pro redesign since 2016, and Apple has done a lot of learning since then, especially with thermals inside of their computers. And I think this MacBook Pro is probably going to be a make or break moment for Apple's portable laptop lineup, especially when it comes to pros. A lot of pros were unhappy with the 2016 era of MacBook Pro. So hopefully we see a really cool redesign. We see Apple trying really hard, and I really want to see this new MacBook Pro because recently with Mac hardware, Apple has done a much better job. The new 2018 Mac Mini, the 2017 iMac Pro, even the 2019 iMac behind me with the 8-core processor. It is a beast of a computer. But anyway, that's what I think about Apple's rumored laptops. Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments below. What do you think about the new 13-inch MacBook Pro and MacBook Air getting an updated keyboard? Do you think that's going to happen as soon as October, or do you think that's for 2020? Also, let me know what you think of that 16.5-inch MacBook Pro. I know I'm excited. I'm not excited to spend $3,000, but let me know what you think about the current rumors. What do you think the 16.5-inch MacBook Pro needs? What sort of features would you like to see on it? And if you liked the video, make sure you give me a like. If you want to see more from my channel, including future coverage of these MacBooks if and when they come out, be sure to subscribe. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.